to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast with Borg, Betz, and a baller.
Welcome in. Wednesday, October 22nd, Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. I almost said DFS. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni. I'm joined by Matthew Betz and Jason Moore.
Hello.
Kyle, you're just
I don't know what that was.
What was that, Jason?
I don't know. This is post lunch, and sometimes things come out. I got a Reuben today. I didn't go healthy, so it was delicious, but it is inside of me because I feel it.
I have to be in the right mood for a Reuben. It's rare. But
yeah, a Reuben is not a daily eater. That's not like, this is my morning Reuben. I wake up, make myself some eggs and a Reuben. No, what is that, like pastrami and sauerkraut and Thousand Island? It is.
It's thick.
It's thick.
Okay,
yeah.
That's fine. It's a good little. It's a meal that gets you going, ready to talk football. Or if you fall asleep, Jason, I don't hate you.
Yeah. Good. You carry.
Do you ever take naps at the office anymore? You used to do it back in the day.
No. I'm too unhealthy for that. I require a CPAP machine, so no napping for me.
No napping on account of health.
Hey, that's fine. I try to sneak it in there. If I could, I would nap every single day of my life.
I feel like you do nap
too.
every day.
It doesn't happen all the time, but like, if there's a chance that maybe it could happen, I will find a way and just kind of sneak away from my family. That's the big issue at this point. Like, my kids are young, Bet's yours are younger. Jason, like, could you sneak away from for a nap from your kids?
Oh yeah, easily.
See, Bet's can't really do that.
I can't. It's like, you sneak away for a few minutes to
bad father and husband if you do that.
Yeah, to hit the waiver wire or whatever on the toilet like we all do. And immediately it's like, where are you? Where have you been? It's been 5 minutes. So, yeah, no, those days will come, I'm sure, but not right now.
On this episode, we will rewind the film, talk about a pretty exciting week 7 across the board in the NFL, and then do a little Dynasty keep, trade, cut, which does not mean we're telling you to cut that player, because if you listen to this podcast for any amount of time, you should never cut anyone at any point, because every single player can bounce back. Every single player can be great. I have a couple of players on my team that I, over the offseason, was like, man, maybe I should cut those guys. They're starting for me now. Like, who knew that Kamani Vidal would be a starting running back for me in Dynasty at this point? So we'll talk about some of those players. Let's jump in and look at the film.
Weekly Rewind.
I got to watch a lot, and I mean a lot of football this Sunday. Like, sometimes my schedule's a little crazy with my kids with baseball. I was coming back from the beach the week before, but I felt like I was locked into most of the games, except for the game that Betz watched. I did not stay up late on the East Coast and watch Texans Seahawks. They tell me the Seahawks won. That's all I know.
Yeah, you didn't miss much, certainly not from the Texans side of the ball. You missed pretty much jack squat.
A lot of Woody.
Only thing, a lot of Woody going nowhere. The only thing of note in that game is what Betz's film breakdown is.
Yes, just so everybody's aware, I did not stay up for this game. This was the next morning rewatch, the condensed version. So nice. You can watch it in like 40 minutes.
It is great.
But yeah, the Texans offense it's a train wreck right now. We have Nico Collins in concussion protocol. Their offensive line is a disaster. They don't have a run game. Like, it's really, really tough to see a ceiling outcome for these teams and these players. So when I do talk about Jaylin Noel, I want to give context. This is a dynasty discussion, not a put him in your lineup this week. It's going to be incredible, because he only ran a route on 46% of the dropbacks. That was a season high. So it's been a very, very slow burn for these rookies out of Iowa State, specifically with Noel. The thing that was so encouraging, earned 7 targets on that, partial route share. Pretty much every route he ran out of the slot. But when you think about a slot player in the NFL, sometimes there's like 2 versions, like the slot players that can do a lot of the things that are beyond the line of scrimmage, those big boy routes, the crossers, the outs, stuff like that, slot fades, or like your traditional, what we think of as a slot player, like, they're getting a screen, they're getting like a 2-yard drag route, like that kind of stuff. He was doing more of the former, where he was actually running a ton of routes down the field, a lot of deep outs, a lot of crossers, stuff like that I think are high percentage looks and I think fit well overall with CJ Stroud's skill set. Now, this year, it's been a tough watch for CJ Stroud and the Texans, but if you zoom out, over the course of the last few seasons with CJ Stroud, we talked about this at length, like his ability to deliver the ball in the intermediate of the field, intermediate area when he has time is great. The problem right now is he doesn't have time, and obviously the playmakers are kind of lacking here. But with Christian Kirk re-aggravating the hamstring injury, I think Jaylin Noel's role could potentially grow this year. So if you got him in Dynasty, as you took him in like, I don't know, the late second of your rookie draft, something like that this offseason, I'm at least encouraged with what we saw in his, limited opportunity here. I will say the game script kind of went perfectly for him to get on the field where, Nico got banged up and they were trailing pretty much the entire game. But overall, pretty encouraging usage and signs from Jaylin Noel in his first real action of the season.
I went back and looked at my notes in the prospect season because he was one of my favorite players to target. And even before the NFL draft, I was looking at my comps. I said, I think Randall Cobb is on the table. He might be a souped up version of Christian Kirk, which is just funny that he lands on the Texans behind him. I think the best part about him, like you mentioned, is that the shot plays from the slot that they used in college could work. He wasn't just like running those drag routes like talk. So that's nice that they did use him that way early on. I know it's a small sample size, but like on the end of your bench, taxi squad, wherever he's at, like I think that next year when Kirk is gone, he could be starting in 3 wide sets.
Yeah, for sure. I think he will be.
Jason, you have
I had
sexiest
2 players. Well, I do, but you don't know which player that is. I'll talk about a sexy player, which is Oronde Gadsden II, rookie tight end for the Chargers, who obviously just went off this last week. Now, that game was absurd. The Colts came and put it on the Chargers. Another one of those game scripts where you're not going to see that on the reg. You're not going to see the Chargers down a cajillion points, having to throw every play for the entire second half. But you do have a running game that is not great, and the ball's going to be put in Herbert's hands. This is a rookie who had good production in college, has a pedigree of athleticism in a lineage, and now all of a sudden, right off the bat in his rookie season, and Harbaugh talked him up. Harbaugh, this wasn't out of the blue. Harbaugh loves this guy, and so he's on the field doing great things. So I went and I watched the routes, and the truth is, he is I don't think he is an outstanding route runner yet. I didn't watch, he's not a wide receiver. He's a tight end, but he is so big and fast. He just ran away from guys. He looked very athletic on a field in pads with the ball in his hands. And while I don't think he's an outstanding route runner, I did love how they used him. They used him in the slot. They used him out wide. One of his big plays, he was out wide. He was playing, the X role, just running down the field, catching deep passes, running away from guys. So he's certainly someone that needs to be paid attention to. I talked about it on the main show that in a Dynasty league, it's tough sledding rest of season here, but he's connected to Herbert on a good team. He's a rookie. I think he's going to get better and better, more involved. He's worth, a second-round pick to me in Dynasty, especially if it can be a future second-round pick. I'd go grab him before he actually is established, and you'll have what I think will be a long career. The other film that I watched, which is the sexiest name possible, at least the sexiest film, dude, Drake May is on fire. Drake May, I mean, I know it wasn't a tough matchup, but this is 3 weeks in a row of him looking excellent. And 3 weeks ago, that was the Buffalo Bills, where they went and surprised them and got the victory, in division. And he had a bad fantasy day because he didn't throw touchdowns, but he looked great that game. And he has just been getting better every single game. I mean, he broke, I forget what the exact record was this last week.
The Patriots' completion percentage record in a game.
Yeah, I mean,
the Patriots.
Tom Tom Brady. Tom Brady was there for, a long time, setting all sorts of records, and Brady never did what Drake May did in that game. And then, that's statistics. That's like, okay, his completion percentage was good. But then you go watch the game. These aren't dink and dunks. These aren't just screen, the old Kirk Cousins and Drew Brees throwing for 80% completion every game because it's all little short stuff. He's sliding around in the pocket, making anticipatory throws over defenders, dropping it in the bucket. I mean, there's nothing on his film that could have been better. It was like a perfect game. So for a second-year player to be doing what he's doing, and, we talked about it early in the offseason, the Patriots have a very easy schedule this entire season. They were, projected for 8.5 wins, which shocked the other two guys, and I was saying, I remember those episodes.
They were, Andy could not believe that.
Andy couldn't believe it. I mean, because the Patriots sucked last year. But they're set up. Vrabel's a phenomenal coach. And there are weapons. Like, there's no superstar. It's not Diggs of old. Booty is not I don't think he's going to develop into, a tier 1 wide receiver. But they have enough between Booty and Douglas and Hunter Henry and Diggs. Like, he could spread the ball around. And, of course, they're awesome pass-catching running back, Ramondre Stevenson. So I'm falling in love with Drake May right now.
I love it. I have nothing else to add. He's been awesome. Yeah, I love the fact that you brought that up, Jason, about, like, sometimes when you see a player, especially in fantasy, but really like NFL terms, there are certain teams and, systems and weapons that can help elevate the quarterback. When you see the opposite happening, it's like that guy is the dude. Again, no disrespect to Diggs and Booty and those guys, but, Diggs at this stage of his career, Booty's kind of like a solid wide receiver to 3-ish type guy in the NFL. He doesn't have elite weapons. So just imagine another year with draft capital at the offensive line, potentially in the next upcoming draft or free agency, a legit, real NFL wide receiver 1. There is, I think it's crazy to say this, but I think there is another level that he could get to beyond this. He's playing out of his mind right now. And like you said, that win total in the beginning sounded silly at 8.5. Currently live, you can bet at midseason, it is 10.5. So
wow.
Market is on the Patriots for sure.
It's not, I was thinking about this today, that it's not impossible or even crazy. Like, impossible is too strong. It's not a crazy thought at all to say the Patriots win the division. That felt like, well, they can't be better than the Bills. But they already beat the Bills once. So the best the Bills can do in division against them is just split. So this is like, they're going to be in the running. I mean, and their upcoming schedule, they've got the Browns this week, tough defense, but they should win that. The Falcons, the Jets, the Bengals, the Giants, the Jets again, Miami on the schedule. They've got a lot of W's in there.
Yeah, I think people underrate or maybe don't understand how the schedule works. This is a 4th place schedule. So, like, I know already weak division, right? Miami's been, the bottom's falling out there. The Jets, even worse.
They basically get 4 wins against Miami and the Jets. That's done. And then because they're a 4th place from last year, they get the 4th place schedule of the other teams that you play. They get the gimmies.
Yeah, no, it's a gift. I want to put this to the test because I think we all love Drake May, and we're trying to figure out where he pegs in terms of dynasty quarterbacks. Would you rather have, so Drake May is 23.1 years old, which is beautiful in dynasty. Would you rather have him or Joe Burrow?
I would personally rather have Drake May for the rushing component.
Oh, man.
He's going to score more points for your team right now.
Well, he's certainly going to score more right now. Joe Burrow's 28 years old. If I had to make that choice right now.
In a startup,
I would take Joe Burrow still. Joe Burrow, we know he is unbelievable. He was the quarterback 2 last year. He will get it done. He's one of the only guys that I view as a top tier without rushing upside.
Right.
And at 28 years old, he should still have plenty. maybe it falls off at 35, but that's like I don't need to worry about, 5 years from now. Oh, I'll still have several more years of Drake May and Joe Burrow will be at the end. Like, I probably won't have either of them on my roster 5 years from now. I'm wheeling and dealing. So, obviously, if you're a contending team, if you're like, for instance, Mike in our Dynasty League, one of the best rosters, he's still contending, could still win the championship. He had that Burrow Chase stack, and he lost that. Seemed like his season was going to be over when Burrow went down. Now there's some hope with Flacco in town. But, like, maybe, that's the type of team where you go, hey, maybe you offer Joe Burrow for Drake May because he's not going to help you this year. And if you're a championship team, obviously one of them is way more valuable right now.
All right, I'm going to give you one more name, and that'll kind of transition into my conversation. So I think that the distinguishing factor, what Jason, I think, did a good job talking about, is it's one thing to say, here's who I take in startup. It's another thing to say, here's who I trade for. But at the end of the day, if you want to be competitive right now, I think what Jason's saying is, I think May could be more valuable down the line. But who cares 3 or 4 years from now if I can win a championship this year or next year? It's just, there's different ways to play this game. And that's like, would you rather have Drake May in Dynasty or Patrick Mahomes, who is 30 years old?
I would rather have Mahomes. Mahomes will, I think he's going to continue to dominate this year, score more fantasy points this year. And if he has a great season, his value, like, he'll be drafted. If he does better this year, he'll be drafted ahead and redraft next year than Drake May, even if Drake May has a breakout.
To where he was before.
Exactly. And that value will be so doggone high. I think he will just be worth more to trade.
Betz?
I think that makes a lot of sense in that context. I probably am taking May in a startup, I think. So kind of like the Burrow discussion, it's a different thing, and it's a different game, basically. But that's why I would approach it. The Chiefs are back. The Chiefs are, 2 or 3 years ago, are back. This offense is so fun to watch. I know Kyle's going to bring up one of the players here, but he's got all his guys back. They're rolling. He's the MVP favorite right now, so hard not to love Mahomes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you watch the film. Tell us, Kyle.
Well, I have a big question because they had the ball for 42 minutes. It's the most of any team this entire year. They just had the ball the entire time. If you had a Raiders player, you looked up, like, where the heck were any of the opportunities at all?
No joke. This happened. This Sunday, we're watching games. The games are going on. I don't know how far into it. It felt like it was darn near halftime or whatever. And I look over, and on the bottom right screen, we got 9 screens over here, and on the bottom right screen, we had the Raiders and the Chiefs game. And I see the camera is behind Ashton Genty, and I see number 2 in the backfield, and the first thought my brain had was, oh, the afternoon games have started. The Raiders have started playing. That was my honest to goodness reaction. I was like, oh, guys, the Raiders are on. I forgot that they were playing football because they never had the ball.
Yeah, the numbers, they had the ball for 17 minutes and 52 seconds. Okay, that's the lowest of the entire year. The next lowest team of the entire season through 7 weeks had the ball for over 21 minutes. So, insane. It didn't matter. So you got a lot of Chiefs plays and then a lot of plays in the second half, especially that third, fourth quarter. Minshew came in. It didn't really matter. I focused on the first, 2 quarters. Mahomes was getting the ball out quick. It was the quickest of his entire career in terms of average time to throw. All 3 of his touchdowns, quick throws. 9 different Kansas City players caught a pass. So that's just didn't matter. And he targeted a slot receiver on almost 50% of his attempts. And here's my question, because Rashee Rice is the big takeaway. It was cool. The route tree is not really a route tree. It's kind of like flag football stuff. So my question is, what the heck is the rest of the NFL doing, the Raiders especially? Because all of those plays were slot plays and close to the line of scrimmage. All of them. When Rice would come in motion, I'm like, well, obviously it seems like they're giving him the ball. They've done it the last, it didn't matter. And I don't think that teams respect him deep because he just doesn't run a ton of routes there. So what are they doing?
You're saying defensively?
Yes.
Like, why can't they stop it?
Yes.
It is really the way that they do it. And I remember this from the first 3 games of last season with Rice. the way they do it, it feels unstoppable. You almost need to like put two guys on Rice at the line of scrimmage, which would be insane. Like nobody, has defensive formations that way. But when you've got essentially a defender and an offensive guy, and that offensive guy can go left or he can go right, and you just get to choose, and you've got a quarterback that's just going to put it on him, and you're going to be in sync every time, you can't really defend it. And then if you do hit him in stride, it gives, the reason Rashee Rice is known as like a yak monster, yards after catch machine, is simply because he's getting all of these passes really shallow where the play is designed to get the yards after you've got the ball. And so I honestly don't know how I would defend it.
There was so many linebackers that were like, they were assigned to him in coverage. I'm like, well, you can't keep up with him. And then if they put like a little nickel corner, it's like, well, this dude's going to punch you in the face. You're not going to be able to take him down. It's kind of the only player I can compare it to. It's been Debo in the past. And then you kind of get this in Harold Fannin where it's like, he's not fast at all. And yet the dude is open in these yak plays over and over again. And in the short area, it works in the NFL. It's frustrating when you watch it and you go,
yeah,
his ADOT was 1.6. It's just right there.
Handoff.
It really was. And it works in this NFL. And I think it works with this modern Chiefs offense because now they have Hollywood and Worthy that you have to respect deep, right?
And Thornton.
Thornton's been awesome in his role. So like any one of those three players, we've seen Thornton like down the field. You have to respect it now. So anyway, they killed it. The Raiders were terrible. They barely even played in the game. Any thoughts with Rice, Betz, dynasty wise? I mean, he already was there. I know for you, you're a big Rice guy, but any thoughts of moving forward?
Yeah, I think the thing with Rice, it's always been kind of the discussion points, like in his prospect, coming into the NFL and then like after the year one, the conversation around him has always been like, is he really even that good of like a real wide receiver in terms of like when you picture an NFL wide receiver running these routes down the field, creating separation, all those things? I have no idea. I'm not even sure it matters, right? Like it doesn't matter for fantasy. The role that he has is so unique, and I trust Mahomes and Andy Reid so much that I think he's a perfect fit for what they're trying to do. And then you think about, okay, like what does this team look like for the rest of the year and then beyond this season? We've talked about the Kelsey thing for a couple of years, like clearly on his way out, probably his last season. So those underneath area targets are his and pretty much his alone for the foreseeable future. So yeah, I think if you got him and you kind of wrote it out through the suspension, this is great. If you happen to be able to buy low in a dynasty league, like as that was going on, you're past it and that's great. So yeah, I think the arrow is clearly pointing up here. And the thing about this is he only ran 19 routes, right? And this was the usage. They clearly had a game plan to get him involved. And as we saw last year at the start of the season, and obviously now this time, this is just what they're going to do with him. So, I mean, PPR formats, my goodness, you have to be so excited about that. But even in half PPR, I think he's locked in. I don't want to say like top 12 option in Dynasty. I don't know where you guys would come in on that, but certainly a top 20 option for me.
I think he's probably around 15 to 17. Like, would you rather have Garrett Wilson or Rashee Rice?
That one's tough.
And that is tough. I'm going to go with Rashee Rice on that. Garrett Wilson is the better wide receiver. If I was a general manager and I was, drafting a new team coming into the league, I would pick Garrett Wilson over Rice. But in the fantasy football landscape, one of them is tied to Mahomes and one of them is tied to a dumpster organization that I don't trust to ever solve the quarterback position. So, I'll lean on Mahomes here. And he's only 25 years old. So I definitely see him as a top 15 dynasty wide receiver.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah, the buying window, the door was shut.
She closed.
Yep. It's over. It's over, folks. All right, let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back. All right, we are going to dive into a number of keep trade cut questions. Got to learn how to say that. You guys have been doing this segment, Jason, for almost 10 years now. Did you realize that?
No, I didn't. But if I wanted to know how long it had been, I would have asked you.
I figured. I'll figure out what shirt you're wearing later. So let's jump into it.
Keep Trade cut.
That's the research that I failed to do for this episode. What shirt was Jason wearing the first time they did keep trade cut a decade ago?
Was I even wearing a shirt? I don't know.
We'll never know.
No one remembers if there was a period of Jason's life where he didn't wear shirts on the podcast. Like, there's going to be one person that goes back and they check it. All right, so
you got to find it.
We are not telling you to cut this player. As I said earlier, you can't cut that guy by any means necessary. Just keep him. Whoever it is you're thinking of, don't cut them. But we are saying in terms of dynasty value, here's how we look at these players. Here's who we think has better value. And I think you can go about this a little bit differently. Like, I would keep this player because I'm a contender and I want to use this player now. Or you could say I'm keeping this player in dynasty because I think he's going to have the most long-term value. We can kind of discuss that. The first category I have is a number of quarterbacks. So if you're in a Superflex league, I think you went into this season thinking about these guys as low-end QB1s, and one of them you're like, I had no idea he's going to be this valuable. So the keep trade cut is Jackson Dart, who is the hotness right now, Bo Nix, who is in that same game with him, and Caleb Williams. Jackson Dart is 22 years old, Bo Nix is 25.6, and Caleb Williams is almost 24. So young quarterbacks that I think if you had in Dynasty, you're very happy about all three of these. You'd prefer them more as a QB2 than building around. But Betz, I will let you take the first crack at it of how you view these players and, what you do, keep trade cut.
So my take on this is going to be tied to how they perform fantasy-wise, because these guys all have different strengths.
Important.
Because it's a fantasy show?
That's correct. They all have different strengths and
their
weaknesses.
Personality is how I'm going to look at them.
Based off of what they wear in their pregame entrance into the stadium. No, I think Jackson Dart is, like, the way he scores fantasy points is sustainable. And, it's only been a handful of starts for him. But the thing that was so encouraging about what translated from college, as we talked about with the kind of prospect season, was his scramble rate. And you're seeing that now really on display in the NFL. I know he didn't run a ton against Denver. Nobody has this year. But even against Denver, like, as a passer, outside of that one boneheaded interception at the end of the game, he played quite well. And he's played really well in difficult matchups against, the Eagles a couple weeks ago and previously to that too. I think he's here to stay as far as how he scores fantasy points. There will be ups and downs as a passer for sure, especially this year when you think about the weaponry, but drop Malik Neighbors back into this lineup next year and obviously good things are going to happen. So he would be my keep, I think. I would probably be trading Bo Nix. There's something about the way he's playing right now. And I know the fourth quarter was like insane, like outlier insane this past week.
You mean the quarterback won on the week, the best fantasy quarterback of the week?
40 points, Betz?
Did he had what, 4 total fantasy points entering the fourth quarter?
Less than 4, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that is insane. I don't know. He just he seems so inconsistent to me this year, Bo Nix has, where I can't tell if it's like the play calling is kind of like tied to Peyton not trusting him to like open it up more or what. But I think he's a good fit in Peyton's system. It's just I don't know that there's a ton of like consistent ceiling outcomes for Bo Nix. I think he'll be fine for fantasy. I see a higher ceiling for Dart. So I would keep Dart. I would trade Bo Nix. And I guess I'm, in that case, cutting Caleb. But obviously that's not really what we're doing in Dynasty. So what's your take?
For me, Bo Nix would be my keep.
You love Bo Nix.
I do love Bo Nix, and I realize he's been very inconsistent so far this year. Honestly, the Broncos offense has just, you don't know what you're getting. We've talked about it on the other, on the main shows. Like, sometimes they show up in a big way, and sometimes they look absolutely dumbfounded and they can't move the ball. And they look that way for 3 quarters against the Giants at home. So I understand the struggles, but from a dynasty perspective, he runs the ball. I mean, all 3 of these quarterbacks run the ball enough to give you a good fantasy baseline. But he runs the ball, and he's on a good franchise. He's on a well-run team that we have an established coach for. And I feel like the world around a quarterback is so important for success. And so I love what we're seeing from Caleb Williams. He's stepping up. Maybe Ben Johnson is going to be who the Bears hope he was, but we don't really know that. In in New York, I mean, Dart has been so exciting. So exciting. But this is a tiny, itsy-bitsy sample size. And in that same game, where he came back and scored the touchdown, the Broncos just dropped two egregious interception opportunities where Jackson Dart just threw it right to them. And they dropped both of them, and then he got a touchdown afterwards. So that's like an 8-point swing where you wouldn't be thinking quite as hot about Jackson Dart right now. Also, his play style says, like, you're not making a 17-game season, man. He's not he's playing like Josh Allen, but he's not built like Josh Allen. So to me, I like just the consistency of Bo Nix from a long-term standpoint. I feel like I know he's going to be around and successful for a long time. And on the Bears side with Caleb, he's looking great. They've won 4 games in a row. That could turn into the best of all 3 of them. I am a little bit skeptical because there's been a lot of erratic play for 2 years where sometimes he looks great, sometimes he looks bad. The Bears they're the type of franchise where, I mean, they still have never had a quarterback throw for 4,000 yards. Their highest passer of all time was 38. Right now, Caleb is on pace to just still not beat that number. So I personally, because of the hotness, I think I would be trading Jackson Dart. I think someone will trade very high on him, but you could also trade Caleb Williams. Like, really, is there a Giants fan in your league? Is there a Bears fan in your league? Because those guys are going to pay up for their quarterbacks. They believe in them right now. They're excited for them. Like, that's a know your league situation. Most leagues have a fan of one of those 2 teams, or the big popular teams to be fans of.
They're not allowed to be in leagues with me.
Oh yeah. Well, you're smart. But I'm in a couple of leagues where I've got Giants fans and Bears fans, and so I know their value would be enormous. But I'm holding on to. I'm going to keep Bo Nix here. What about you, Kyle?
I think I'm in the same boat where I think it's easy for me to picture Bo Nix being a stable player over the next 5 years, where Dart's like, okay, the high-end outcome is you are 80% of Josh Allen, which is just fun to be able to think about and say, hey, you have this type of outlook. The floor is, hey, you can't sustain this. Who knows who your coach is or your play caller next year? And then what are the other weapons beyond Neighbors and even Scattaboo? So I think Dart holds the most trade value right now. Betz, do you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, for sure, especially with what he's done the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay. And then Caleb, I've been probably a little too harsh on Caleb since he came in the league. Like, I've been very, very vocal about, I just don't see this working. Through 7 weeks, guys, he's still kind of doing the same thing in terms of catchable targets, adjusted completion percentage. It's still not great. We've had some high-end fantasy outcomes because he's starting to run. So I think we all like that part of his game, that this year, he's been a quarterback 9, quarterback 1, but that was against Dallas. He was quarterback 10 a couple weeks ago. It's fine. It's great.
But he's also the quarterback 20 and 24 and 27.
Yeah, and this past week was weird. They ran the ball, 40 times? They just said, okay, we're going to milk away the clock in the second half and just be done with this game. I just worry about players like this, that eventually you just keep trying to throw off-balance stuff. It doesn't work. Bo Nix has actually been really good outside the pocket throughout his career, way better than Caleb has been. I think my problem with Nix, Betz brought it up, I don't know what the play calling's like, or in terms of, but everything was short last year, and anything beyond the intermediate area stinks. It's bad. It's really bad for Nix. I even looked at what these 3 quarterbacks have done through the first 3 quarters. Just to throw out Nix's fourth quarter, I'm like, okay, that's going to skew all of his stats for the entire year for the fourth quarter. So through 3 quarters this year, Bo Nix and Caleb Williams have 7 passing touchdowns. Dart has 6 in just 4 games. It's pretty impressive. They've basically all scrambled for the exact same amount, but Dart's been the one completing more passes, has more fantasy points per dropback. Nix has been QB 20, that's where he feels in terms of a lot of metrics, and that's that's scary. If that's who he is the next couple of years, like I would be very disappointed in this decision because I think Caleb and Dart have a higher ceiling. Do you believe that, Jason?
Yeah. I think they do have higher ceilings. I don't know that Caleb Williams has a higher ceiling. I'm gonna retract that.
Okay.
I think Dart has a higher ceiling. Caleb Williams, if he hits his ceiling, I think he'll be great. People will be really, really happy. But I think it's the same ceiling that Bo Nix has.
I think with Caleb, I also lean into younger weapons and play caller. That like there could be this just level up in the future where he still has these inefficiencies as a passer, but for fantasy, you're running. Now the offense is clicking on all cylinders. They've improved the offensive line. And a year from now, it's like, oh, yeah, that dude's QB4. Yeah, I could see that happening. Betz, do you see that?
Yeah, I think so. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I'm with you in like the Caleb takes where it's like, last year was kind of a really rocky up and down season. But as you mentioned, Jason, so much of what makes a quarterback successful is the ecosystem around them. From a pass catcher standpoint, offensive line, head coach, and play caller. And to give Caleb at least like the benefit of the doubt last year, it was just a complete train wreck in Chicago where, there was all these rumors
Waldron,
of like...
You started with Waldron.
Well, exactly. And it's like, apparently there was rumors like they didn't even want to meet before the game to go over the game plan, and like watching film with him, they weren't really assisting him. So he was kind of on his own, and who knows how much of that is true or isn't. But just like now you have this stability with Ben Johnson where what is going to happen over the next several years. He still is doing a lot of the issues that he had last year, but I think he can grow out of them over time as he learns the system. So I do agree with Kyle there in that take as far as the ceiling is concerned. I think these guys are all really close together in value, I would say. It's a pretty interesting conversation, but I did just want to give Caleb a little bit of benefit of the doubt given how bad everything around him was last year.
All right, I'm going to go to a new position, and we're going to keep trade cut 3 running backs. Breece Hall, who is 24 years old in the final year of his deal. Travion Henderson, who feels like he's the worst running back in the world, according to Twitter right now. And then on the other end of the spectrum, Cam Skatt, who is lighting the world on fire. In fact, I looked it up. This is the most fantasy points over the last decade for a running back who was drafted on day 3 through their first 7 games. The most. So what are you doing here? Because they're all at different stages. I know that there's 2 rookies, but like Henderson, I think, is all over the map for people.
Well, it makes sense, and you're going to feel you want to make sure not to overreact to the recency bias of these first 7 weeks of a rookie. There's a long list of really, really good fantasy running backs who did very little through their first 7 weeks of their rookie season. This is not, nobody should be looking at Travion Henderson and being like he's done. He doesn't have it. Like, this is 7 games into a career. You can also worry, as I have done in the past, about a day 3 back that the team is not heavily financially invested in and draft capital invested in, who's having a resurgence in Cam Skatt. Also, Cam Skatt is a little bit older than you would think for a rookie. He's almost 24 years old. Cam Skatt,
he's got the gravitas.
He is going nowhere. Cam Skatt is their starter for the next 4 years. That position is on lockdown. He has it. I mean, there is no depth. To me, like, Cam Skatt is a running back 1 in my Dynasty startup rankings.
Wow.
He is by far the guy I would want of these 3 running backs first. This is a player who, on film and production, should have been a first-round NFL draft pick. Like, the only comps you can make to Cam Skatt based on film and production are guys who went in the first round historically, like from his final season at ASU last year. He fell in the draft. People were scared of a bad combine. Maybe the athleticism won't translate to the NFL, but it did. Like, that's proven. It translated. He's mowing guys over with his helmet. Oh, so check this out. We got our friends over at the Green Gridiron, who made the helmets that we have on our set. They do all all sorts of awesome helmet stuff. We received a Cam Scattaboo helmet that is Scattaboo's. They do the work for the Giants, and his face mask, they replaced the face masks, after games. I didn't realize how much damage it took. We just got it today. It was the one Cam wore. The face mask is destroyed. It is you can't believe it when you look at it. It's like you took this thing and you just bashed it against asphalt and tried to scratch it, and you did it 100 times. The metal is poking out everywhere. I mean, it's unbelievable, guys. Like, when you see it in person, we all watch film. We all watch football. We've done this, I've done this professionally for a decade. You're like, wow, that's hard. I had no idea until I looked at this helmet. I'm like, that's impossible. A machine has to cause this kind of damage, and he is. So, for me, just like we said last year, we've got 2 examples in the last long while of a 4th-round running back who I buy into in the following season. I say, yeah, look, he was just too good. The team might not have been invested, but they are now. It was Bucky Irving last year, which seems like obviously a win. I know he's injured right now, but, they invested. He's been awesome. And it's Cam Scattaboo. Cam Scattaboo is their starters. I have no fear of them drafting another running back to replace him or anything like that. So he's my one.
Scattaboo's,
and then it gets real confusing with Breece and Travion.
Scattaboo's draft capital will just be a little factoid, like we talk about with Puka. Like, oh, remember when he was drafted in this? It's not going to factor in the same way we would Dameon Pierce and some of those other running backs that we were like, hey, this isn't going to hold up. So I agree with you on that. I have to go through the rankings. He might end up around there, RB 11, 12, in terms of startup, which is cool and wild and great.
Yeah. Okay. So we know Bijan, Gibbs, Genty, those guys are going to be ahead. I assume Achane would be ahead. Bucky Irving might be ahead.
Josh Jacobs.
Ironically, what's that?
Josh Jacobs.
Josh Jacobs. That's a great question. I mean, I've got Josh Jacobs. I've got him behind him.
Hampton.
Yeah, the other rookies are the big question, right? Like Hampton, Judkins. It's funny, on the bold predictions episode on this Dynasty podcast in the offseason, it was that I believe half of next year's top 12 running backs will be rookies from this season, and we're getting pretty close there because I don't know how many guys, Genty, Hampton, Judkins, and Cam Scattaboo, I think will all be top 12 Dynasty startup picks. So we just need 2 more guys sneak in there, huh, Travion? Huh, Caleb? Why don't you guys wake up?
It does feel like the changing of the guard in the Dynasty landscape where, last year's rookie class obviously left a lot to be desired. We talked a lot about that. And then this year, the highlight of the offseason was the rookie running backs. And then now you have guys that, it's been kind of disappointing for obviously Derrick Henry, and Saquon hasn't been great. And, you kind of have this like slow tide turn where now the rookies really have a spot in Dynasty where they look super strong. So I think that makes a lot of sense to me. As far as the Breece versus, who are we talking about? Travion. I almost said Javonte. As Travion, I am still not ready to, like Jason said, throw in the towel on Travion after 7 games where, yeah, it's been a disaster, let's be honest. But he has great draft capital. He had the production profile. He's a good athlete. He can catch the football. Those are all the things that we look for in fantasy. So he's a guy that, I know that we're talking about like keep, trade, cut. If you can trade for him, especially if you're not winning your league this year, this is like the perfect running back to go get, where you look at what could happen next year and beyond. I want guys tied to Drake May. And so Travion to me is certainly a trade for target, especially if you're not a contender.
He is in the exact spot that James Cook was. James Cook was taken in the 2nd round. James Cook scored fewer fantasy points through his first 7 games. Derrick Henry also scored fewer. Now he was behind DeMarco Murray. But it's like very similar that like, just wait just a second, and there will be an opportunity. We're already saying we're buying into Drake May. We love Drake May. Like, there's an opportunity a year from now. Or so, yeah, definitely do not abandon Travion. I wonder who has the most trade value, though, between Breece and Travion?
Breece. I think Breece has more trade value than Travion. I think sharp people will do what Betz is saying and potentially trade for Travion Henderson, but most people have a real hard time overcoming what they're seeing right now. And the same is true for Caleb Johnson as well. I know I'm biased because I really liked Caleb Johnson's tape, and he's done beyond nothing. I mean, he wishes he was getting the work Travion Henderson is getting. But it's another guy where it's like, dude, we're 7 games into a rookie's career with high draft capital. He's not going to they're not going to cut the guy. They're not going to move on from him. They're going to get him worked in, but only when it makes sense. It's ironic because I think really good coaches, and we saw this with Dan Campbell, they don't care about anything but winning. They just want to win. And what the Patriots are doing right now is winning games.
Right.
They're not – we assume like, oh, you guys don't want to – you're making bad coaching decisions. You spend this draft capital and you're not getting your guy involved. It's like, no, they're making great decisions because they're winning ball games. And when that player is ready to help them win games, then that player is going to be the one helping them win games. And so, it doesn't matter if Isaac TeSlaa is ready year one, he's going to put him out there. If Jameson Williams isn't, he's going to let him prepare and get better in the sidelines, even though we can, scream and cry that, we want him on the field. So my point is, trade for Travion Henderson or Caleb Johnson if you can get them cheap. But Breece Hall in the larger field, I think, would carry more weight for a traded value.
Mike Vrabel is not sitting there in the second and third quarter saying, okay, so now what is the touch count so far for these running backs? Like he's not thinking about that. So, we always joke about quarterback head coaches like, man, why didn't I get this guy more touches? In the game, they're not thinking about that. Afterwards, we get to go back and in hindsight say, hey, the split was, 60-40 or 70-30. Or they're just in the game. They're thinking Ramondre Stevenson is the guy on this play in this package. I'm going to keep putting him in there. We're in the red zone. I'm putting this player in there. The hardest part about Travion is right now he's a between the 20s change of pace back, which is the worst play. That was what Devin Singletary was that for a long time, where like Buffalo, it's like, oh, that was an exciting play. And it's like, well, dude, you're not going to get any red zone work. And it just, at the end of the day, it's not going to matter. Speaking of red zone, Breece Hall has 1 red zone rushing touchdown over his last 22 games. That's not his fault.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I was going to say, it's not like other guys do. You got to get in the red zone to have a rushing touchdown in the red zone.
Do you guys think the Jets trade Breece Hall before the deadline?
I know Andy does. I don't think they do personally. Certainly you could see it happening. If another team comes and makes him a good offer and wants to get Breece, then sure, they'll let go of him because he's not back on this team next year. But, this is, I think Breece gets a good contract this offseason. He's a talented back. He's got a good name. He'd be good for selling tickets for, a new team, and he'd be good for helping a new team win. And so if he gets a big bada-boom contract in the offseason, I think he'll be the belle of the ball on the free agent running backs, then the compensatory pick that the Jets will get for it would be probably even more than the 4th or 5th rounder that they're, being offered and floated around right now. So I don't think he gets traded, but I definitely don't think he is re-signing with the Jets.
What a weird team that has to start over at quarterback next year, start over at running back, and then wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. Just like they have literally no starters on the team.
You got a tight end.
They do. They invested. They put that draft capital in there. All right, let's take a quick break, and we'll talk a few more. All right, let's do a couple more keep trade cuts. This one is third-year wide receivers. So there were 4 wide receivers drafted a couple years ago in the first round. It was JSN, Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnson, Zay Flowers. Okay, we're not going to put JSN in this group because, well, he has evolved into his full form.
He's his own thing now.
But Addison, who is 23.7 years old, Johnson's 24, Zay Flowers is the old man of the group at 25. I did want to bring up Addison. I feel like he just completely goes off the radar that, like, because he's the 2 on that team, his 3 games that he's played this year, wide receiver 14, wide receiver 20, wide receiver 10, and there's been a lot of complaint about Carson Wentz, because he was really bad, by the way, against the Eagles. But, man, he hasn't done a lot for Jefferson. I wish he could do more. I looked back over the last 17 games. We have a consistency score on our website. So, Carson Wentz, Sam Darnold, who cares? Their consistency score between Addison and Jefferson is razor thin. 59% of the time, Addison's been a really good player, over 10.5 points. Jefferson's at 64%. I'm shocked that he's just off my radar all the time.
Yes, I mean, it's so weird. So Jordan Addison, as a rookie, he was my guy. I loved this film. I was a ardent believer that this is a great wide receiver. It reminded me a lot of Devontae Smith. And to be honest, fantasy-wise, there are a lot of it's a mirrored situation to me. It's a good offense, and you've got an alpha in, A.J. Brown for Devontae Smith. And Devontae Smith is just over there being a great wide receiver too. And he's still awesome and he's still good for fantasy. And I like him more than Jordan Addison. I don't know why all of a sudden I don't respect Jordan Addison enough, because he is getting it done. Like his super small sample, he's only played in 3 games this year, but his 3-game pace is over 1,600 yards. I mean, he's getting it done. And so far in his short career, he was the wide receiver 21, the wide receiver 22, and right now he's been awesome through 3 games. So he really needs more respect, and I still, in my heart, don't give it. Like, in my mind, I understand, but I'm waiting for the shoe to drop.
Open your heart, Jason.
Yeah, and part of it is, I think, the fall-off of Hawkinson to some degree. He doesn't look like the explosive tight end that maybe he was when he came to this team. Post-surgery and being a little older, he's more of a lumbering lion than, on the prowl. So, Addison's always going to benefit from Jefferson as well.
It's hard to believe he's not even 24 years old yet.
Yeah, and he's a great wide receiver. I know what it is for me. I'll be completely honest. And I don't know why it doesn't do the same thing with my comp of Devontae Smith.
Because he was wet and reckless?
No, his charge of wet reckless, I'm fine with that. It's because he's 179 pounds. If he was 195 pounds, I'd be like, I would be banging the drum for this guy.
But you love Devontae Smith.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't make sense. I need to.
Now that we're talking,
I need to believe in Jordan Addison more.
I think the way that we all feel about Addison is he's a good player, but when you're looking at lineup start sits or you think about startup rankings or whatever, he doesn't really pop off the screen to you, right? Which means he's probably an awesome guy to go trade for, where you could probably get him for 85, 90 cents on the dollar as far as what it'll actually give you on the field production. He's in his 3rd year. All he's done is finish as the wide receiver 21 and 22, and then, like Kyle said, has produced in the 3 games he's been back. So he's a really good wide receiver, man. So yeah, we need to be higher on Jordan Addison, I think, is the take.
I traded him away this offseason for Colston Loveland. Okay. I wish it was Tyler Warren, because in my heart of hearts, I know that Tyler Warren will always be number 1, but I was happy to get a young tight end, and I think it'd still work out. But I think that's what you're going to have to pay, is a mid to late first for Jordan Addison. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it's not fun, but that's kind of what you're doing. You're re-rolling and hoping next year's wide receiver is better. The other guys, Johnston, Zay Flowers. Johnston caught a touchdown this past week. He was hurt the week before, but he was the hotness a little while ago. Zay Flowers is a weird player, man. 29% target share. He has 1 finish inside the top 24, and yet I feel like that's what he's been. Is the targets are there. Will he score a touchdown? He has these games where he vanishes, and I know they haven't had Lamar, but it's just that's been the story through 2.5 years.
I think in redraft, Zay Flowers is such a good trade for target right now because of the Lamar-less games, and people don't even want to roster him right now, so trading for him will cost you very little. From a dynasty perspective, when we're looking at the career and just who this player is, I think that Zay Flowers is kind of a between-the-20s guy. He, you talked about that with the running backs. This is a guy who's going to be the number one target for Lamar Jackson and get plenty of yards and be okay. But he is never going to, I don't think, win you a championship. He's not going to put 3 games together with touchdowns in a row in playoffs and be a dominant force. He's just kind of a really, really good flex option. I don't even see him as a wide receiver 2, which he might be. I'd rather have Addison than Flowers.
Starting Flowers is not an easy task. You think it would be very easy. You just, it's Lamar. They're favored by a touchdown or whatever it is. Like, it's frustrating week to week. So I think we all are on the side of, I think we would keep Addison. I think I would trade Johnston because I think he's the hottest name of this group, or at least like recently has. And then I would cut Flowers. Betz?
I think that makes sense. Yeah. I think I'm with you guys.
Wait, who were you keeping?
Addison.
I'm gonna keep Huge over Addison. We'll go back to the weight.
You still hate Addison, huh?
Still don't respect him enough. But I think that the breakout for Huge is real. He is a physical freak that now, with the other options on that team, with Ladd and with Keenan and with Oronde and a running game that will be better when Hampton is back. I just don't know how you can stop Huge from doing what he is good at. It took him a little while, but he would be my keep. So I'd keep him, trade Addison, cut Flowers.
Justin Herbert right now is currently supporting 3 top 24 wide receivers in full PPR and, a breakout tight end. And they have a running back that when he's back is going to be legit too. It's crazy because they've been struggling recently, and yet for fantasy, it's awesome.
I think
it's a ton of volume.
I can't remember if it's my, let me look. I think it's my Megala Bowl team where I've got, I'm basically the Chargers, and it's been working out pretty well for me. No, it's Listener League. So in the Listener League here, I've got Quentin Johnston, Keenan Allen, and Gadsden.
Nice.
And
just start them all.
Pretty okay. Yeah, I'm doing all right. I got the bye right now.
All right, let's do one more position here at tight end, calling it the tight end tango. Would you rather have Jake Ferguson, Tucker Kraft, or Colston Loveland? Okay, so Ferguson got paid this offseason. He's almost 27 years old. Kraft is in year 3, about to be 25. And Colston is a little baby boy, 21 and a half years old. So, in a startup, I think...
Oh, man.
I think after the season, this is a different conversation. Rest of season, I want Jake Ferguson of this group. But in Dynasty, it's a different conversation. I don't think rest of season any of us are taking Colston Loveland over Ferguson or Kraft, just rest of season.
Yeah.
But he's so young.
Yeah, in a dynasty startup, I mean, I feel like I would always draft Colston Loveland ahead of the other guys for the what if factor, for the difference maker. He's 21 years old, a lot more years. And when I do draft, I skew to the younger players. It feels like the wrong decision to me, though. It's too early to write off Colston Loveland, but I've got a little bit of like the confirmation bias because I was not a big fan of Colston Loveland. I wasn't as hot and bothered as the NFL was. I mean, the NFL was reportedly all trying to trade up to get this guy, and as soon as the Bears took him, phone stopped ringing. Obviously, they are better at this than I am. But I was in love with Tyler Warren, and I was pretty lukewarm on Colston Loveland. The fact that we have started out and we see Loveland not really dominating, he hasn't really done anything special yet, while some other, Gadsden is dominating, and obviously Tyler Warren is dominating. Look, here's the truth. Ferguson, Kraft, Loveland, tight ends. There aren't going to be, like, of all the tight ends, all of them, the top 50 tight ends in fantasy, almost all of them are irrelevantly stupid. There's
like IQ
McBride. Yes, IQ-wise. They've hit their head one too many times. They're all mostly irrelevant. They're all streaming options. They're all good some games and bad most games. With very few exceptions, you can count them on like 4 fingers. And so at that point, the obvious bet is that Loveland won't develop into one of those guys. That he will develop. He was drafted too high. He's not going anywhere. He'll be involved. He'll be on the field. He'll have a long career.
He'll be Dalton Kincaid.
Most likely he's just going to be one of the top 50 tight ends that are good sometimes and bad most times, like everybody. So when Ferguson is on this list, who is actually being a difference maker, who has done it for a while, I feel like he's the right answer. I think you should, even in a dynasty league, have Ferguson, who can be much more confidently started than these other guys. But it's tough because he's 26 years old. I don't know. Am I crazy over here to think Ferguson in a dynasty league might be worth more than Loveland? Am I too recency biased with all the targets and touchdowns Ferg's been getting?
I was going to say, if you're Dallas and you look at this offseason, you're like, what do we need to do? Fix this defense. Like right now, it's so perfect for Dak and the pass catchers. And obviously, Ferguson in the last several weeks has been incredible without CD. I know he had 2 touchdowns this past week when Lamb was back in the lineup. To me, this feels like peak value for Jake Ferguson, where if I can flip him for somebody like Colston Loveland in Dynasty League, like I'm doing that. Obviously, if you're a contender, that's a tricky thing to do because you want those points. So yeah, like Kyle said, like rest of the season, I prefer Ferguson and Kraft. Kind of like Travion, I'm just not ready to make any decisions on Loveland, especially when we know tight ends kind of historically take a little while. So for me, I'm still high on Loveland. But the guy that we didn't even like really touch on here is Tucker Kraft, who's just an absolute monster. And I think is here to stay. We do the whole thing every offseason with like this wide receiver room and who's the guy and how do you give the targets up? It's like, what if moving forward, Tucker Kraft continues to just be that good? And then the answer is he is the focal point of the pass game and the rest of the wide receivers are kind of revolving around him. I think that's certainly possible. So I think Tucker Kraft is like just now starting to scratch the surface of what he can be in the NFL. He is just so good after the catch and so dominant. The concerns with the Packers is always going to be overall pass attempt volume, which is where you could give the nod to Ferguson because Dak is just chucking. But for me, I think Ferguson right now is like approaching peak dynasty life cycle value. I think the arrow is still pointing up on Kraft and Loveland.
Yeah, I totally get that. If you want to try to maximize the potential of the current tight end 1 in Ferguson and get something for him, if you can get a lot, that's fine. But I will just say the answer to this question unequivocally and correctly is whoever scores the most fantasy points. Like that, like maybe we don't know which name it is, but whoever scores the most fantasy points for your team was the correct answer to keep probably over the next 3 years, right? Yeah. Whoever scores the most points over the next 3 years, that's who was the best answer. And Jake Ferguson just got a big bag of money. So he's older, he's 26, but he got a big bag of money that they don't even have an out until after the 2027 season. So he is, he is in his prime and has a couple more years of whatever he's doing. And while it's not ever, like Tucker Kraft, Colston Loveland, you look at those guys and you hope they develop into Trey McBride. You hope they develop into a Brock Bowers.
Tucker Kraft could be Trey McBride.
Exactly. Tucker Kraft could, and Loveland could. There's no world where Ferguson ever develops into that. We know what he is. But Jason Witten, late career Jason Witten, was great for fantasy. That's fine. You don't have, that's what I'm saying. Like, the odds are that all 3 of these guys don't develop into the, top 3 type of dominant tight end. In which case, if they're just in the mix, I think Ferg's probably the best.
I'm going to trade Ferg. I agree with Betz if I'm just thinking trade value. I think I'm going to keep Tucker Kraft. I think he gets a bag this offseason. And then I would cut Colston Loveland. I think at the end of the day, my biggest bugaboos were, I don't know what you are. I don't know how you fit the modern day NFL. And unless he has an outlier season where he gets 100 to 125 targets, it's just not going to work. in the same way that it does for other big tight ends. Like after the catch, Tucker Kraft is a beast. Maybe the best in the league, right up there with McBride and other dudes, Tyler Warren. Ferguson, he could get there on touchdowns alone, but I'm willing to trade that. Colston Loveland, I think, is just in this nebulous world, and maybe I'm wrong. And I have him in Dynasty, but I hate it so much that like the NFL thinks that this can work in the NFL. It hasn't worked with any of these hybrid tight ends at all. And then how it translates to fantasy, right? Pitts, Kincaid, Gesicki, all those dudes.
I don't think he's not Gesicki.
He's in the same tier though.
I don't agree with that.
Gesicki was a better athlete than all of them.
Yeah, but Gesicki's a wide receiver.
A monster athlete.
I think that's what Loveland's going to end up being. Now, he's a better blocker. I will agree.
I was going to say, I don't think he's only that. I think he needs to develop. And like right now, that's kind of what he's typecast at. I don't think that's what he's going to be forever. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? But like right now, that's kind of what it feels like. I think he can develop further into what we think of as like the traditional tight end role over time. 21 years old, right? Like, I think this is one of those where it's like, if you are viewing Dynasty in the next year, the other guys are certainly going to be better. If you are full rebuild, kind of zoom out, right now there's so much fun on Loveland, and I liked him a lot pre-draft and everything, so maybe that's why I'm tied to that. But I do think like there's a chance this could be an awesome buying opportunity.
I think with Loveland, and I know it's always going to be compared to Warren, but when that happened, pick 10, pick 14, that draft capital did not matter to me. The difference between those did not matter. It just, which did you like better as a player? Now, because Loveland was drafted first, that was a strong point for a lot of people. Like, look, the NFL thinks this. But in terms of the game we play, I think it wasn't close of who I liked. And I know it's confirming all my priors, but 4 picks is nothing, guys.
Yeah, we were in lockstep there. Also, there was the issue of target competition.
Yes.
And it seemed like there was an easier path for Warren to be more important to the offense than Loveland, at least to start. Well, you've got Odunze and you drafted Luther Burden, and currently, DJ Moore has a new contract. He's not going anywhere. So Loveland, yeah, it's confirming priors, and I really do caution people because I am so confident Loveland will never do anything and not be like a real dominant fantasy option. Don't take my advice on that, because you can't write off rookies this few of games into their rookie season. It's just silly. Like if I had Loveland because the value dropped to me and I drafted him, I certainly would not be moving on from him by any means, because that's idiocy, even though I believe he will never be that dude because he's got a little kitty cat in him.
Well, like Betz said earlier, like there's going to be a point where if this offense just progresses and Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams, it's just like, what if they are maybe not fully the Lions, but like what if they're that type of offense where it's like,
sure,
they're barn burners. You want Colston Loveland. Like he's going to hop on board the ride. I just don't never think he's going to be the focal point the way that Tyler Warren's
it's like, like a Laporta. Laporta can be awesome. Laporta literally finished as the tight end 1, but also sometimes they just don't need him.
Yeah. That's going to do it for this episode. If you have some more keep, trade, cut discussions, make sure you check us out, our Footballers Discord channels. We have a Dynasty channel, Dynasty Superflex, and we'll talk to you again next week. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. If you want to take your Dynasty skills to the next level, check out thefantasyfootballers.com.